Oh boy, it's time to talk about fangames again, and wouldn't you know, it's another shooter. Last time I covered a well-known fangame that I'm personally not too fond of, so this time I thought, you know what, I'm gonna treat myself. I'm gonna treat myself to some of that good, if you know what I mean. Book of Star Mythology. You saw it in the title, it's Book of Star Mythology. What originally began as a music album, thanks to a joint effort by various composers, eventually got turned into an actual game with the help of even more people. Seriously, it's actually kind of insane how many names worked on this game. It was made using Damakufu PH3, a modern, more advanced version of the original engine, and first released on November 29, 2015, though it would continue receiving updates until it was finally finished about 1 year later, on December 24, 2016. Well, the project was organized by composer and arranger Maze, also known as Maze Knight, and released under their team name of Maze's Secret Base, due to the involvement of people from the very loosely defined Team Kaisen duo, namely Ido, Raichu, and Oyasumiruka. It is generally placed in that library along with titles such as The Last Comer and Hollow Song of Birds, and in my opinion, well, my opinion that might be outdated since I don't remember much about those other games, maybe I should have covered them first before landing on this one, but you know, whatever. In my memory, it is the best of them. It's the one that has left a lasting impression on me, and not because Jesus was in it or anything like that. Though I have to be honest, there's still only one main reason why I originally thought of talking about this game, and it'll become evident later on when we get there. But obviously one reason is not enough to build a whole video around it, so of course I had to check it out in full, see exactly if there was something else that got my attention, and ultimately decide if, you know, is this fangame really worth talking about? Well, the answer was yes. Oh boy, yes it is. I'd even say I got more than what I bargained for. I really thought this would just be a relatively small video, but it just kept piling on as I played more of the game and did the research. I mean, just the notes that I took after each session were already lengthy enough as is. Now, the first thing I noticed when I was getting ready for my first run, aside from the very cute artwork of Reimu in the title screen, is the presence of two game modes, Legendary Hero and Legacy. And if that reminds you of Legacy of the United Kingdom, it's because it's exactly the same premise, and I don't think it's coincidence considering that this fangame originated like a couple months after Legacy of the United Kingdom. The justification for it might be a bit looser here, but it's whatever. That said, it still remains the most baffling part of this game to me, which is why I'm gonna get it out of the way now. And believe it or not, it's not because of the symbol or the terminology being used. Unlike the point device mode found in Touhou 15 that would just put you back at the beginning of the predefined chapter if you died, in this Legendary Hero mode you just don't die. I mean, yeah, you do still die and the game keeps track of how many times it happens even, but you just respawn in the same spot a second later, meaning you just have infinite lives. I mean, the life counter even says infinite. And I really can't grasp why it is like that. I mean, sure, point device has issues, it makes the game more tedious and less fun by forcing you to do a perfect run of it or having to use one of your limited bombs, but I don't think the solution was to just remove the stakes altogether. No wait, hold on, there is a penalty, you can't death bomb. Wowee. To be fair, it is really easy to death bomb in this game. The window to do it is massive to the point where I'd say it's actually viable to rely on it, so maybe it feels like a bigger drawback in practice than on paper, but even then, I mean, you still have infinite lives. Honestly, there's just no saving point device, I don't think it really works no matter how you spin it, but that's a topic for another day. I guess this mode here is good if you just want like a story mode where you don't have to worry about playing the game. I don't think that's a good design decision to begin with, but sure. Maybe its origins as a music album influenced that. Or you know, you could just see it as a convenient practice tool, even though this game has both stage practice and spell practice, so that's kinda out of the window. But either way, it is the default selection when you start the game, like seemingly you're encouraged to play that way at least the first time. Needless to say, that's exactly what I did, and then stuck to Legacy for every other run after, because that's just more fun for me. Legacy mode is, of course, your traditional Touhou gameplay, though this game does make some changes to that. Most notably, there is no power. As far as I know, all of Team Kaizendo's games are like this. I'm not sure why, it's not really a limitation of the engine, but alright, though it does do away with yet another penalty for dying since, well, there's no power to lose. The way the point of collection works is a bit different too. It stands at the usual place, but you can lower it by chaining enemies, signaled by this blue arrow at the left side of the screen that kinda blends in with the background. I didn't notice it for the longest time, and it would confuse the hell out of me why I'd randomly auto-collect items for seemingly no reason, until I looked it up. And I did read the in-game manual, mind you. Does it say there actually? Fuck, it does. Oh, okay, I guess I'm stupid. The game does look really pretty. The bullet sprites and patterns are very eye-catching and creative, and a lot of them do feel distinct enough, as in, this is clearly not something that Zoom would do. And that's a good thing. Visibility was a concern a couple times, but overall not an issue, which I'm very happy about. The game does suffer from the stage 4 spike. Kinda. whereas in the stage 4 boss is disproportionately more difficult than anything else, even the later stages, at least for me, but overall it is a simple game. Even leaving aside the completely overtuned gimmick, which we'll talk about in a bit, though playing on hard mode did make me sweat more than a few times still. It's still pretty easy though. It wasn't until I started reading up on the game that I learned there are actually bad endings if you continue. On that note, there's only one ending regardless of shot type, which does streamline things, but it's a bit of a wasted opportunity in my opinion, especially since the existing endings don't try to do anything too wild and are mostly just very funny. There are, however, different ranks depending on your score and how many times you died. Not that it really matters much, but thought I'd mention it. The character art done by Amita is very charming, and like with the spell card designs, it also seems to be trying to imitate parts of Sun's style, while at the same time also doing its own thing with it, ended up with something that feels like Touhou, yet looks uniquely different. I'm a big fan of it. They also give Marisa a big ass hat, which is always the right choice, and Sanae has the little sapling on her hair, which is also always the right choice. She is also oddly breasted up. If I can say one thing that I don't like that much, that would be the sound effects. They're a bit too crunchy and the mixing isn't particularly great, making them stand out too much at some points and sometimes not at all. Part of it is a bias because at this point I'm so used to the actual Touhou sound effects that hearing anything else just immediately clashes with my expectations. You know, it is a bit odd, but generally it can get a bit grating at times, especially with a particular example I'll mention in just a bit. The roster this time is the classic trio of Reimu, Marisa and Sanae. Reimu is as vanilla as ever. Her first shot type is the classic Homing Amulets, with Focus giving her them up from Double Dealing Character, which I was quite surprised and honestly excited to see. I never thought I'd find it in a fangame. Her bomb is Fantasy Seal, of course, works pretty much the same as usual, though it seems to be a bit slower for some reason. Reimu B is the Needles, both focused and unfocused, and they are pretty serviceable, especially when you line it up so every shot hits. Weirdly enough, each character only has the one bomb, regardless of shot type. It's not really an issue to me, they usually all get the same job done in a different way, but an odd choice nonetheless. Anyways, Marisa. Marisa A is the classic missiles and lasers, which strangely enough only retain the piercing quality on the focused version. It is probably more balanced this way, since the unfocused shot has a great spread already, and it'd probably be too good if you could also hit enemies behind. They are very noisy also, and it would get very annoying if it wasn't that the music drowns it out a bit. The focused version also shoots directly behind you, essentially covering a vertical line across the screen. It doesn't come in handy often, but when it does, it is a welcome addition. With that said, Marisa A is fine. Probably better than both of Reimu's shots overall, since her damage output is pretty much the same as Reimu B, but you don't need to be as precise about it. The bomb is Master Spark, obviously, and it's probably the worst in the game despite it doing the most damage out of them, for reasons we'll get into later. Just keep that in mind along with the fact that it also slows Marisa down to a crawl. Marisa B is the Flamethrower, another shot you don't see often, except here it's always attached to her, so it's automatically better than in official games just because of that. It's still a little underwhelming though. The spread is not that good, so clearing stages can be a pain often. Shooting off to the sides does help with that, but you still have to put yourself in more risk for the same gain you'd get with other shots. The focused version is short-ranged and heavily encourages shotgunning, having one of the highest damage outputs when you really get in there, but of course that's not always possible and that lack of versatility makes it not very good for me. Still, it's pretty fun to just shred bosses with it. Finally, we have Sanae. Her first shot is reminiscent of the one from 10 Desires. That is to say, it's trash. The spread looks impressive, but it barely does any damage, and the focus shot seems geared towards shotgunning as well, but it just doesn't keep up with what the others can output. High risk, less reward. Sanae's bomb is great thaumaturgy, clearing bullets and doing damage around her, though again it's pretty much the same as the other bombs in practice. Sanae B is the shot she had from LOL-K onwards. That is to say, the good one. Good spread with high damage that absolutely shreds bosses if you shotgun it. It might do even more damage if you alternate it with the focus shot, but you see, I like having fingers, so I didn't really test that out too much. Speaking of, the focus shot is the homing snakes. It has the same issue as Reimu's homing shots where they might target an enemy you don't want them to, but overall it's perfectly fine. And that's our playable options, so how about we talk about mechanics now? Wish items are the main gimmick of this game. Star-shaped items dropped by enemies you shoot down, and more importantly, generated rapidly by shooting them up close. And you wanna be doing this no matter what, because wish items are extremely important, both for scoring and resources. Collecting wish items fills up this constellation gauge, and once it's full, it increases your magnitude level, which is simply a point item value multiplier. And it also produces a life piece, or bomb piece in Legendary Hero. If you're wondering why magnitude goes down instead of up, well, that's how the magnitude scale it takes from works, where the brighter an object appears, such as a star, the lower its magnitude value is. Now if you know me, you know that anything that encourages to play more aggressively I'm automatically a fan of, and this is no exception. I mean, it doesn't get more aggressive than asking you to stay up in enemies' faces for as long as possible. It's very fun and rewarding to do so, and the game is clearly built around abusing the system, giving you ample openings to utilize it in full, along with plenty of shot taps that can already take advantage of shotgunning by themselves, so you would want to be up there regardless. That does mean, however, that I often ended up playing more reckless than I already usually do, but that's really just a me issue, and besides, again, it's just really fun. Now the bad part is that it might just be a little overtuned. It is so easy to farm resources with this. I think this footage showing that I died 10 times over the course of the run and still had 4 extra lives to my name says it all. Sure, that's only if you are willing to play around this mechanic as much as possible, taking as many chances as you can to get in there, but I mean, you should, and again, it is not as hard as it sounds, believe it or not. And I haven't even mentioned yet how bombs play into this. As you may know, when you use a bomb, you're invulnerable for a few seconds during which you can also continue to shoot normally. You see where I'm going with this? I found out real quick that it is absolutely a viable strategy to spam bombs and farm wish items this way, especially with bosses of course. Yeah, the damage from the bomb itself limits in some way how many you get, since they're gonna be dying faster, but it's still a very decent amount per use. And did I mention how many bombs you get, by the way? Again, there's multiple chapters per stage in this game, regardless of which mode you play, and instead of having a bunch of requirements like low case point device does, here all it takes is not dying for you to get a bomb piece at the end of every single one of them. Combine that with the fact that this game also works on 10 desires rules, that is, you don't lose whatever excess of bombs you have if you do die, and it all means you're never really gonna be hurting for bombs throughout the entire run. So yeah, this game can be snapped in half should you decide to do it, and honestly, I don't even care because it's so much fun, and again, it's not like the higher difficulties won't make you struggle either. It's high risk, stupidly high reward, and it feels very good to me. By the way, this is why Marisa's bomb is kinda the worst one. The higher damage makes bosses die even faster, giving you less chance to farm items, and the slowdown makes it harder to get in position to begin with unless you do it beforehand. But even then, it can still get the job done. Wish items do serve one more purpose though, and you would not believe what that is, it's last words. Of course it's last words. Getting enough per stage lets you challenge the last word. What else could it be? You know, it's funny to me that this is the second time I bring up last words, and I still haven't even talked about Imperishable Night, the game that introduced this concept. As always, it is a noticeably more difficult spell card. You have one shot at it for a score bonus, but there's no penalty for failing it. This is a good time to mention that I really like how some spell cards have some setup to them before it actually starts. I don't know, kinda adds to the whole spectacle, makes it more cinematic in a way. I think it happens more often with last words, but some regular ones have it too. Book of Star Mythology draws from a whole bunch of things, as we'll see in this section, but it is mainly based on Tanabata, also referred to as the Star Festival, held on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month, where people write down the wishes they want granted. Traditionally, it revolves around the tale of Hikoboshi and Orihime, represented by the stars Altair and Vega respectively, two lovers separated by the River of Heaven, that is the Milky Way, who are only allowed to meet once a year. In classic Moriya conspiracy fashion, these gods decide to do a second Tanabata by picking the date from the older calendar, using Morning Glories as a symbol for it, which of course fucks everything up due to the overflow of wishes from humans affecting the stars and causing endless rain to fall across Kensokyo. This also has roots on the tale, as it is said that if it rains on Tanabata, Orihime and Hikoboshi cannot meet due to the rise of the river. I like the detail of every character being assigned a constellation, by the way. It doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things as far as I'm aware, besides just being fun, but hey, it's not like official works haven't done some sort of theming like this too. For the playable characters, Reimu is associated with Virgo, which means maiden in Latin. Sedan gets Ophiuchus, commonly depicted as a man holding a snake, and for Marisa it's Sagittarius, which took me a while to make sense of, but I have to assume it's because by looking towards Sagittarius, you're looking towards the galactic center of the Milky Way. Since Marisa's character is already heavily linked to stars to begin with, I guess this only makes sense for her. Funnily enough, in the official work Alternative Facts of Eastern Utopia, released 1 year later in 2017, there's an horoscope written by Marisa where she assigns herself the Sagittarius zodiac. Since every character is an original creation with only a single exception, might as well go over them while talking about how the story progresses, shall we? The fairies, Fabritis and Ephonia, serve as the two stage 1 bosses, having grown stronger from the abundance of Morning Glories, both of their names referencing said flowers in some way. They're pretty funny but easily forgotten. For a duo boss, however, they are pretty good and have some attacks that play off each other, but being on stage 1 limits how complex they can get overall, sadly. Their constellation is Gemini, you know, because there's two of them. Tobiko Takato appears in Stage 2, a crowd tango based on the ninja master Kato Danso, also known as Tobi Kato because of his alleged ability to fly. We'll be seeing more about ninjas in a bit, don't you worry. A pretty eccentric character with the pretty cool ability to manipulate presence, which she uses to hide herself, and if someone else didn't exist, she would probably be my favorite from this game. She's kinda the magician that can actually pull off some very impressive stunts, but ends up being a little too full of herself because of it. That fingerless gloves and garter belt combo is insane, by the way. Her constellation is Corvus, for reasons that should be obvious. Shilaya Lyrac is next, based on the star system Beta Lyrae, also known as Shilaic, in the constellation of Lyra, which also contains the star Vega, that is, Orihime. That's a very long chain. As such, she is a servant to Orihime, having caused the rain in the first place to put an end to Tanabata prematurely and stop the flow of wishes. The best way I can describe Shilaya is someone who got called into work to solve a problem they had nothing to do with, and they are very much not happy about it. And reading through her profile later confirmed my thoughts that yeah, she does not like going into work. Based. Her constellation is the previously mentioned Lyra, of course. Moko is here, by the way, appearing as a stage 4 mid-boss since we're in the bamboo forest, I guess. She's pretty cheerful here and wears a skirt, which I don't think is allowed. Give that girl her pants back. Her constellation is Phoenix, unsurprisingly. Ichiyo Mochizuki is the stage 4 boss, and she's literally just some girl. A traveling or walking shrine maiden from the outside world descended from the Mochizuki ninja clan, who arrived in Kizuki somehow in search of a relic held by one of the Fume clan of ninjas. Walking shrine maidens are a thing that existed, though I like that it's also here to contrast with Deimo being the flying shrine maiden. She probably has some of the more elaborate spellcards in this game, with a lot of parts to them that you have to pay attention to all at once. It's very frantic and a little bit stressful, not gonna lie. Also, she looks like Narumi. Well, actually, I guess Narumi looks like Ichiyo since that was after this game, but you know what I mean. Her constellation is Pegasus, for reasons that are completely unknown to me, honestly. If you happen to know why, please leave it in the comments. Oh, would you look at that? It's time for the best OC in any fangame ever. Nitsu Akitsu is the stage 5 boss, and she is somewhat this game's real villain, a yokai kitsune that had long ago been sealed away and controlled by the Hojo clan and the Fuma ninja clan who served the former. She crafted a plan to manipulate Fuma Mishandra, who is up next, spoilers, to release the seal placed on her and take control of the Summer Triangle, which includes the stars Altair, Vega and Deneb, so it all comes full circle. Triangle, I mean. She's based on a folk tale involving the daimyo Hojo Ujiesu, who composed a poem to mock and defeat a fox yokai by splitting the word kitsune between two lines. This is referenced in the dialogue between the heroines and Nitsu, and even her name plays into it when read in last name first name order, her profile mentioning that it was given to her to keep her tame. I love that she transforms into one of the playable characters at first and doesn't even try to be subtle about it, even uses some attacks reminiscent of them in some twisted way. Her design is great, her boss fight is great, and that theme, frantic, disorienting, just exudes that feeling of trying to outsmart a trickster fox at her own game. And then you get to this like breakdown section or whatever you want to call it, and it's It's great. I love it, I love her, and if you're wondering, yes, she's the main reason this game got my attention in the first place. What can I say? I'm not immune to the allure of a fucked up evil fox, but that's also a little stupid. Her constellation is Vulpecula, meaning little fox, fittingly situated in the middle of the Summer Triangle as if it was trapped in there. Finally, we have Fuma Mishandra. Oh boy, where do I even start with this creator? Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I'm kinda torn on her, because part of this character's story is a massive stretch, and her profile seems to somewhat acknowledge that and plays it for laughs, knowing it's kinda bullshit, but the other part is really good. So the Fume clan's relic was the Lemecheton, also known as the Lesser Key of Solomon, which you just have to accept that they had. During the fight that would decide their legacy, they planned on summoning the Legion of 72 Demons described in the Ars Goetia, the first section of the Lemecheton, using an hexagram-shaped magic circle. How would they make that? Well, an hexagram can be made out of two triangles. So you have the Summer Triangle, and near it are the constellations of Vulpecula, Sagitta, and Delphinus, which you can also use to trace a triangle, and if you just make it a little bigger and superimpose them, I'm not kidding, that's what the text says, you can make an hexagram in the sky. And using Tanabata to gather power into the stars, just like in the current incident, they would be able to summon their army. That didn't come to happen as they lost the battle just before Tanabata arrived, but the power held in the wish of the Fuma clan's leader and the book he possessed gave birth to a divine spirit, who could only identify herself as Fuma, her sole reason for existing being completing the unfinished ritual. By the way, the emblem of the Koju clan, who the Fuma served, was this, so that explains a few things too. You got all that? Good, let's keep going. So now with this Tanabata, something similar is happening, except Fuma seized this chance to use its power to try and seal Netsu away for good, not being fooled by her schemes. Once that purpose is taken away from her, however, since dealing with yokai is the job of Deimo and Co., she decides to instead use the ritual to craft herself a new identity, a new purpose, taking on the name Mishandra, the 73rd demon who commands all others. Of course, that is not true, there's no demon named Mishandra. It was apparently a joke going around Japanese online spaces at some point, and she is aware that it's just an urban legend, but what's stopping her from making it real? And that's it, that's the part that got me, that's the part that gets it, man. And then she does just that, summoning all 72 demons to assist her in this Resurrection Butterfly-esque sequence, because we gotta have one of those, it's a fangame after all, before the number lands on 73. Her very last spell card being just her full name, the name she chose for herself, as if declaring, shouting, celebrating her existence. The spell itself being a visual representation of that whole thing earlier about the hexagram with the two triangles and the not triforce. It's kinda not as important, but whatever. It's so damn good. You're telling me you're not only making a point on identity and how you don't need to let any existing preconceptions define you, how you have the ability to define yourself the way you want and choose what your purpose is, but you're also doing it in a way that's coherent with the themes that Touhou already established. The power of words and belief, how talking about something and bringing attention to it makes it a reality, keeps it alive in people's minds in some way. I do think that it gets lessened a bit with her already being presented as Fuma Mishandra from the beginning of her fight, but that's a minor detail in what is otherwise a very well done character that kinda makes me wish the game revolved more around her instead of just kinda being a right place, right time situation. Oh, and I guess for the record, Mishandra's constellation is not a constellation, but it is the Summer Triangle. I'm gonna be honest, this game is kind of a mess. It is impressive that it tries to draw inspiration from so many different places, astronomy, folklore, ninjas, the Lemegeton, but you can feel it struggling at various points, like almost bursting at the seams trying to hold everything together to tell a coherent story. Like it's more concerned with finding interesting coincidences and how they're loosely linked together, rather than the whole they're supposed to be part of. That said, well, the coincidences are still interesting, the individual characters are still great, the idea behind Netsu and Mishandra is excellent, chef's kiss, and the latter's conflict touches on a really good subject that's also relevant to Touhou as a whole, which again, makes me wish they had the full stage instead of just kinda piggybacking off the problem someone else caused. Though to be fair, I wouldn't know what to suggest to make it that way. And in any case, the more outlandish stuff does help take some of the edge off. Yeah, it delivers a good message, intentionally or not, but it's also still just not really taking itself too seriously the whole time, and I can respect that. It's probably better this way compared to trying to lean too heavily into keeping an aerodrama all throughout and failing at it. Also, Mishandra having a spell card named Laser Key of Solomon got a good chuckle out of me. I guess I should talk about the extra stage real quick. I didn't think much of it, honestly. The stage portion is fine, I guess, nothing particularly noteworthy. Sengo Sanada is the boss, based on the warrior Yukimura Sanada, or rather his sword, said to be made by the swordsmith Sengo Muramasa, whose blades have garnered the reputation of being cursed. I think the reason she didn't really catch my attention is because her story is kinda the same deal that's going on with Fuma, just with none of the build-up or flair that the former had from being, you know, the final boss. She just sorta shows up and gets beat up, and then you learn the rest by going to her profile. So really just like your average extra boss. She does kinda bring together a particular aspect of this game, which is that a lot of the historical basis for the characters and the story come from Sengoku era Japan. All that said, the fight is pretty damn good, with some unique gimmicks exclusive to it, as well as bringing back everything else you saw throughout the main game. I'm saddened to say that I couldn't complete it in time for this video, but honestly, I get the feeling that they took this as a chance to go absolutely wild with the spell cards, because goddamn, they get pretty crazy. There's just everything, lasers, shurikens, angry men, a fucking battleship, and the non-spells are also pretty lethal on their own too. Just a non-stop onslaught from beginning to end. Her theme is also great, as extra themes tend to be, and speaking of that, the music. All the music in this game is amazing. Every single track is done by a different composer. Again, this was supposed to be an album collab. Maybe I should have brought this up much earlier actually. Now you may think that could end up hurting the identity of the work as a whole, with all the different styles clashing together, especially when it's literally one after the other, but it doesn't. They all fit in perfectly with each other, harmoniously, if you'll allow me the pun. I already gushed over Illness Illusioner, that is Netsu's theme, composed by Yoko Yasha. To add one more thing about it, I really like how it goes for an EOST style with the synths and percussion in the last section of the song. Other favorites include the Tobi Kato of Wind and Thunder by Ryuo, a very playful theme for a very playful character. Those Who Raid the Glimmering Night by Monday, the stage 4 theme that blends in a bunch of motifs from different Touhou songs. Moko and Kaguya's themes from Imperishable Night, Kageru's theme from Double Leading Character, Charming Domination from Perfect Cherry Blossom, of course the theme of Eastern Story goes without saying, and those are just the ones that I could recognize myself. And of course we have both of Mishandra's themes. Great Magic of the Power of Words, Story Wisdom, which I immediately clocked as Wangwan's contribution to the soundtrack, very grandiose all throughout, with the final part coming in first with a very sparse and soft arrangement, before building up to a more energetic variation for the climax. And Hey Not the Wind, Spring Blossoms, Eternal Wind, a reprise that serves as her last word theme composed by Koyama Kiryu, which just makes that final sequence all the more powerful and hard-hitting. It's a phenomenal soundtrack and there's not a single song here that I don't enjoy listening to. And that is Book of Star Mythology. Solid fangame, again going purely by memory, it's probably my favorite of the ones I've seen. Can't wait for that opinion to be outdated in the future. It's certainly a bit too ambitious at times with how many different concepts it tries to blend together, and it does end up muddying the big picture in a way that feels like it could have totally been prevented by just cutting a couple things. But the parts that work do work really well, and offer a really good Touhou-esque experience, while at the same time feeling like something completely different that you certainly wouldn't get from an official Touhou work. The difficulty can sometimes be all over the place, with spikes at very odd sections, while the final boss herself is comparatively very easy. The stage portions were overall pretty underwhelming though, I will say. I think that's definitely where this fangame falls short. But the game as a whole is definitely on the easier side for sure, which on one hand does make it accessible to different skill levels, but if you're purely looking for something more hard-hitting, you'll probably want to look elsewhere unless you're also interested in everything else this fangame offers. It is also free. You can just go download it and play it right now, and the Touhou wiki even offers a version with the English patch already applied. I'll leave all relevant links in the description below. Being a modern-ish game, I didn't encounter any issues while playing. The only thing was a weird visual glitch with the last stage, a flashing warning by the way. This visual glitch where it wouldn't record properly for whatever reason. Thankfully I found a way around it, and besides, that still only happened when recording and not with the game itself. That's gonna be it for now though. I definitely plan on covering other Touhou-style Touhou fangames in the future, including of course Team Kaizendo's works that I mentioned at the start of the video. I feel that those are probably some of the better known in this area, and probably some of the better known fangames overall, or at least a couple of them I've seen talked about a bunch. Of course, there's obviously a lot more outside of that. Wonderful Waking World is one I think I might have mentioned at some point. I've had my sights on it for a good while now, so when the time comes to cover another of these fangames, it's most likely gonna be that one. I'm also aware of the fantastic Damiko Festival series, which recently got its 3rd entry, and they do look pretty interesting from what I've seen, so that could also be another plan for the future. If there's any in particular you'd like to see a video on, do tell me in the comments. I would love to learn more myself, and I might take it into consideration. If not for a video, then maybe streaming it or something. Both? Who knows? In any case, next video is not any of that. I haven't quite decided yet, but next time I'm probably gonna be diving back into Touhou proper with the next entry in the series, Imperishable Night. Arguably the biggest game in the library, which is why I've kinda been dreading having to talk about it, but it's also one of my favorites, and either way, it's gotta happen at some point, right? If not that, then maybe a lore/analysis video that I have drafted for some time now. I don't think I've done a proper one of those just yet, so I think it could also be something interesting to try. They are both coming at some point eventually, by the way, don't get me wrong. I just have to decide on the order, really. Very special thanks to Tier 3 patron and friends Picture Skirt for supporting these endeavors, and as always, thank you for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell, tell your friends, all that good stuff helps out a bunch. Join the Patreon where you can watch future videos early and get some exclusive updates on what I'm up to, and do stop by my streams on Twitch if you got the time. I go live every week, Monday and Friday. In the meantime, I will see you next stream.